All right, let's kick things off with a puzzle. It's a real head-scratcher that has been tripping up translators for centuries, and it's hidden inside one of the most famous books ever written. It's all about how one simple title can mean two completely different things.
So, we're talking about Plato's masterpiece, but its original Greek title, Politeia, is where the mystery really begins. You see, depending on where you are in the world, you might know this book by a totally different name.
For instance, in German, it's almost always called the state, but in English, we know it as the Republic. And this isn't just, a minor translation choice. It's actually a clue that points us to a completely different way of seeing the world, an ancient worldview that we've kind of forgotten. Okay, so to solve this little puzzle, we have to go back, way back. We need to look at the very root of the word itself to figure out where all these different meanings are coming from. The word politeia comes directly from another word, polis. The polis was the ancient Greek city-state. And you have to understand, for an ancient Greek citizen, the polis wasn't just the city they lived in. It was everything. It was the absolute center of their community, their government, and their own identity.
And from this one single root, this whole universe of ideas just springs to life. What's so wild is that these are all ideas that, for us today, are totally separate concepts. I mean, just look at this list. Politeia can be translated as the state, the constitution, citizenship, a political regime, or even a person's entire way of life as a citizen. It's like this one word is a giant suitcase packed with all these ideas that we now keep in completely separate bags.
But here's where it gets really interesting. To truly get what politeia meant, you have to understand what the ancient Greeks saw as its polar opposite.
So, the opposite of politeia, of public life and concern for the community, was a word called idioteia. This word comes from idios, which means self or private. It described a person who was only concerned with their own personal stuff, someone totally disconnected from the life of the community, from the polis.
And get this is the crazy part. Our modern English word idiot, it comes directly from idiotia, a word that started as a totally neutral term for just a private citizen, someone not involved in public affairs, slowly twisted over the centuries into the major insult it is today. That tells you everything about how their values were different from ours.
So, what's the deal? Why did this one word, politeia, do so much heavy lifting for the ancient Greeks? Why didn't they just have separate words for state and citizenship and constitution like we do?
And here's the absolute key to the whole thing. The ambiguity is ours, not theirs. For them, there was no confusion. The state, its laws, and how you lived your life as a good citizen, well, that was all just one thing. It was all woven together into a single, inseparable reality of what it meant to be part of a community. You couldn't just pull one thread out. In fact, you can actually watch this big, all-encompassing idea get smaller and more specific as it travels through history. It starts with the Greek politeia, then the Romans, specifically Cicero, translate it into Latin as res publica, which literally just means the public thing. And from there, it eventually narrows down into our very specific modern political term, republic. But wait, the story doesn't stop in the ancient world. Not at all. This word has a really surprising modern life that shows just how deep its meaning still runs.
Let's fast forward a couple of thousand years to a famous 20th century novel, Zorba the Greek. In its original Greek, the full title is Bios kai Politeia to Alexei Zorba.
So how do we translate that title into English? It's not The Life and State of Alexis Zorba. It's not The Life and Republic. It's translated as The Life and Times of Alexis Zorba. So what does politeia mean here? It refers to Zorba's public journey. It's all the struggles, the adventures, the ups and downs he faces as a member of his community. It suggests that a person's life is defined not just by their private self, their idioteia, but by their engagement with the public world around them. Zorba's politeia is his story as a social being, a life lived out in the open, not behind closed doors.
Okay, so after that deep dive into just a single word, what's the big idea we should walk away with?
Well, for me, the key takeaway is that language isn't just a bunch of labels. A single word can be like a fossil, a perfect artifact that shows us how a whole society saw the world. For the ancient Greeks, there wasn't this sharp line we draw between our private lives and our public responsibilities. They were just two sides of the same coin called politeia. We've inherited some of the words, but we've broken the original concept apart. And that's created this constant tension between the public good and private interests that pretty much defines our modern world.
And that leaves us with one final thought to chew on.
If that split between public and private life defines us now, what single word from our time, packed with all of our assumptions and our contradictions, would a historian 2,000 years from now need to unpack to really understand our worldview?